This is you. This is your glass-walled office. From the comfort of your executive chair, you can see the dev team's Agile board. Question. Without getting up and with no other information, can you tell if the project is in trouble? Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to Development That Pays. Not too long ago, I worked at a startup. It's one of the most high-pressure environments I've ever worked in. One of the things that added to the displeasure of working there was that the dev team was required to provide daily status updates. This was in addition to daily stand-ups. To cut a long story short, we all hated doing it. I remember thinking to myself, the bosses only need to look at the state of our Agile board to see what trouble we're in. I've since become a collector of dodgy-looking Agile boards, and I'd love your help to add to my collection. More on that at the end. First things first, let's remind ourselves what a healthy board looks like, starting with a Scrum board. As we've seen before, Scrum starts by selecting a sprint's worth of tasks and then getting to work. The cards flow across the board, and by the end of the sprint, most, if not all of the cards, should have made it from one side to the other, ready to be released. The process then repeats with a new set of tasks being selected from the backlog. A Kanban board, on the other hand, has a different shape. It doesn't have the periodic property that the Scrum board would have. Cards move across the board in a more or less continuous fashion. When we go spotting Agile boards in the wild, we won't be able to see them in motion, so let's just check that we can identify snapshots. First of all, Scrum or Kanban? Well, the cards are quite evenly spread, so it's likely to be a Kanban board. There are not too many cards on the board, so the work in progress here is nice and low. I'd be happy to give this board a clean bill of health. What about this one? Most of the cards are to the left, so it's most likely that we're looking at a Scrum board and that we're looking at the early stages of a sprint. If this is a Kanban team, or if it's a Scrum that's in the late stages of a sprint, then something is very wrong. As before, not too many cards on the board, not too many cards in any one column, so again, I'll give this one a clean bill of health. Now that we're warmed up, let's have a look at some stinkers. We've come across this one in an earlier episode. Not sure we can say much about test or release, but there's something very wrong with the dev column. I suppose it's possible that this team have 20 plus developers, but if they do, why are 20 plus developers working in a single Agile team? It's likely that many of the cards in this column are blocked, which is a symptom of starting development work on a task too early. This team might benefit from a little more design work before they jump in to dev. Let's move on. In this case, it looks like the dev team have been playing a blinder, with the result that things are piling up in the test column. Now, I wouldn't say that what we're looking at here was a project team in trouble, but what I would like to think would happen at this point is that devs would stop developing, at least some of them, and start lending a hand with some testing. Your devs aren't too big to test, are they? Let's move on again. So here we have a project team that's having all kinds of problems getting things released. Possible causes? Perhaps release is in the hands of an overzealous systems admin who's not willing to share his keys. Or it might just be that we've caught this particular team, this particular board, at a bad time. I know that there are companies that have release freezers at certain times of the year, for example, Christmas. So it might be that if we saw this board again in a couple of weeks, the whole thing might be looking a whole lot more healthy. What about this one? I call this the turkey because it's absolutely stuffed. I think we can assume that it's a Kanban board. There's no evidence of any ebb and flow that we'd expect to see on a Scrum board. There's so much I could say about this board, but let's keep it really simple. There's far too much work in progress. There'll be context switching happening all over the place. Work is moving through this system at a crawl. Basically, there's just no Agile left. As I mentioned earlier, I'd love to add to my collection of dodgy Agile boards. And for that, I need your help. Have you spotted a board in the wild that absolutely stopped you in your tracks? If so, I'd love to hear about it. And if you could share a picture of it, that would be even better. Thanks in advance for your help, and I look forward to talking to you next time.